So I decided to do my research project on urban school settings. This is a broad topic that I have recently found interest in through talking to recent Bethany graduates about teaching. They told me to look into Center for Urban Teaching, which is a group here on campus, and they told me about its purpose and what they hope to accomplish. After talking with them, I started to wonder how urban settings were different than rural settings. I grew up in a rural setting and I never had the knowledge of what it would be like to go to school in an urban setting. I broke up my research into 3 questions. The first is how does the school setting impact a child's learning? And the second was how does an urban school setting impact a child's reading comprehension? And the third question was how do we improve reading comprehension within these schools? So my first question was how does the school setting impact the child's learning? So just a little background information. After World War II, many people moved from urban settings to get jobs so they could provide for their family, and urban education became a euphemism for inner city education, and these schools were more known as the poor communities, populated with mostly ethnic minorities. Rural schools face many of the same problems as the urban areas face. Both urban and rural communities face similar struggles even though their circumstances differ. Both of the areas have experienced decreasing employment and increasing poverty throughout the communities. Research has discovered that people that live in poverty and in urban school settings struggle with school. They have low achievement and less motivation to do school, and this begins in kindergarten and it continues through graduation, if some of them even graduate. A lot of them end up dropping out. Child poverty is one of the most pervasive challenges shared by the urban and rural schools. But some of the stuff that just the urban community deals with is poverty, low levels of literacy, and difficulties within the community. And some of the difficulties are gang activity or just difficult living conditions at home that some of these kids have to deal with. And that, like their living conditions at home, influences the reading comprehension. So that's my next question: is how does the urban setting, school setting, impact reading comprehension? And I read about how important parental involvement is in reading comprehension, reading fluency, and as you guys heard from a few presentations today. And children in urban school settings, often they don't have the help or parental involvement that the rural schools have. So the children come to school already behind in their reading, and teachers have to catch them up to get to their grade level. Also, poverty is an issue for urban schools with reading because parents often can't afford to go buy books before they go to preschool or kindergarten, and a lot of them don't have time to take their kids to the library because they have 2 jobs, they're trying to support their family. A lot of it's single mothers or single dads. So they have a lot of parental responsibilities, or sometimes these parents just don't really care. They didn't do good in school and they don't think school is a real value to their kids. They don't think reading is a necessity to teach them before they go off to kindergarten. I read an article about a study that was performed on an urban school that was mainly full of children with English as their second language. 98% of these kids that go to the school, English is their second language. So they didn't come to school knowing the vocabulary or having like the background knowledge almost coming into school as like some English speakers would say, because they didn't have their parents speaking to them at a young age and just getting simple words like dad, mom in English. So their reading comprehension was way down. So the study was performed on first graders, first grade teachers, and second grade teachers, and the research purpose was to improve early reading intervention practices for first and second grade teachers in an urban school. The data source was DIBELS, which is a set of tasks designed to assess students' fluency with fundamental reading skills. The measure for oral reading fluency was time for 1 minute. The student is presented with a grade level passage and reads continuously for a minute. The score represents the number of correct words read per minute. The first grade benchmark was 40 words read correctly in 1 minute, and the result came out to be the first graders, after the whole study was done, the first graders had growth in their fluency along with the second graders. The students improved because they were able to practice the vocab and the reading out loud and got comfortable with the words. And they could comprehend the story more because they understand each word they were saying. They weren't just reading and then not understanding it. so they could answer questions about what they read too. So overall, it had improved. And then my last question was, how do we improve reading comprehension? Because it is a big issue in the urban setting. And the first step, in everything I read, they didn't really have a go-to like solution, but they all said that the first step in solving a problem is recognizing that there is one, and then collaborating with other professionals to come up with a solution. So these professionals need to work together to come up with a solid plan to help students with their reading comprehension. And they have found one research method that has tended to work over the years. And the first step is to identify each child's perceptual strength. And the second is to teach maximally different words. The third is to teach through resources that match the student's perceptual strength. And then the final task is to teach them words to field independent reading, so they can read on their own with simple words, and they don't need help sounding them out. So in conclusion, throughout my research, I found that school setting does have an impact on a child's learning. I found that the littlest thing in a child's learning environment can have an impact on the way a child learns or even their ability to be able to learn. I also found that being in an urban setting does have an impact on your reading comprehension, just because it's a lot of immigrants and a lot of second English learners, or their parents aren't as involved. And I also found that there's no for sure answer to solve this problem of reading comprehension. They have one method that might work here and there, but they need to still collaborate with professionals, and they're still trying to find a way. And throughout my research, I have found a love for urban schools, and I would love to one day to be able to go in and help these students with my knowledge and knowing how I need to help them, even get their parents involved. And it's just like a really cool thing I kind of picked up on. I highly encourage you guys to look into it.